Given how his night had gone up until now, Taius was justifiably confused when he woke up, still very much alive. The first sensation to welcome him back to the world of the living was the heat of a fire just a little too close to his feet. The glow of the flames was barely visible as a fluttering blob of orange through his eyelids, and the crackle low and muffled in his ears. Drowsily, his mind mired in a fog thicker than that of the swamp, Taius opened his eyes. Gone was the pit, and gone were the scavengers. He was lying on a tattered mat of some kind, tucked into the corner of what looked to be an old abandoned fortress tower. The roof and most of the walls had long ago fallen away, leaving little more than a ring of weather-worn bricks, liberally coated in moss, mushroom, and mold. Rusty old hooks had been driven into the stones, and something hung from each one, namely large burlap sacks, their bottoms wet and stained dark, stuffed with something that dripped. There was more, too. A tent with a bedroll unrolled beneath it sat on the other side of the fire, a pile of logs that no doubt would be used to feed the flames. Various utensils and implements lay scattered haphazardly about. Pliers, tongs, a few spare knives and forks, a meat cleaver, a few hammers, and more that Taius couldn't get a good enough look at to identify. A few old furs belonging to wild animals lay rolled about like a makeshift carpets, their heads taxidermied with psychotic precision. And finally, there was him. A man sat cross-legged on the other side of the fire from Taius, though to call him a man somehow felt both too generous and not generous enough. Never before had Taius seen such a large, hulking specimen of humanity, muscles rippling under tightly stretched skin that fought to contain it all, layered in grease and sweat. An abundance of thick black hair clung into the man's body, making him look like a gorilla that had a bad day with a razor. A wild mass of black hair dangled from his head, hiding his face. He wore little, only a fur-lined leather vest and some tattered brown trousers. His blistered feet were exposed to the elements, and Taius felt sure the man's toes were growing something better left undescribed. "Finally awake?" the man asked without looking up from the fire, and if his body looked like a gorilla, his voice was that of a grizzly bear. A deep, hungering growl. He lifted his head, and Taius swore he could hear the man's skin creaking like stretched leather. The man's eyes and features were revealed, and they did little to put Taius at ease. Yellowing teeth became visible in a grin that was much too wide. "Good." Taius tried to sit up, but realized with a spike of fear that his hands were tied tight behind his back. His feet were likewise bound together. He squirmed fruitlessly for a moment, his heart pounding. It didn't even occur to him to mentally complain about how damned rotten his luck was. First nature, then monsters, now some sort of madman. The man held a hand up, his grin faltering. "Hey now. Shh, 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 shh. Hey, easy. No squirming, eh? You'll hurt yourself. Don't want to damage the goods, yeah?" "Who are you?" Taius asked fearfully, his eyes darting about in hopes of finding a way out. "Why am I tied up?" "Well, to stop you running, of course, and to stop you from trying to hurt me if it turned out you're prone to violence. Though, judging by those twiggy little arms, you're not fit for much more than picking your own boogers." Taius felt his cheeks flushing with indignation, but he found he had no counterpoints to offer. Regrettably, the other man was correct.
As for your first question,
the man went on, focusing back on the fire.
Name's Bodwin. Wildsman, hunter, and gourmand.
Taius stopped struggling, realizing it was useless. He swallowed heavily and focused on Bodwin. "What happened to me?" he asked after a moment of consideration. The last thing I recall, I was dying, I think."
Aye, it was pretty close,
Bodwin confirmed, tossing a log into the fire. He picked up a spare stick, procured a knife, and started whittling something.
Misket's got you. Nasty little buggers.
Lucky you only got a small dose of their acid, and I happen to have a healing pearl on hand. Taius blinked, his fear momentarily overcome with incredulity. "You?" he asked, only realizing how rude it may sound when he said to the other man who saved his life. Bodwin pointed his knife at Taius with a coy smirk.
What? Just because I live out in the middle of nowhere in a circle of rocks, I'm not allowed to have nice things?
Taius actually cracked a small smile at that, loosing a little chuckle. Sorry, I'm not used to people helping me. Thank you." Bodwin chuckled and turned his attention back to his project.
You're welcome. We'll let the pearl run its course. You got yourself all caught up and took a bath in swamp water. If you caught anything nasty, the pearl should help clear out the worst of it. Then, once it's passed through your system, we can get to the fun part.
Taius lost his smile. "Fun part?" he asked haltingly, and reminded himself he was still bound. Bodwin didn't look at him this time. His eyes steadily glazed over, and a dreamy little smirk crept onto his face like an invasive centipede.
Yeah, cooking. That's always the best part. The act of creating a good meal is just as much fun as eating the meal itself. You know, sometimes I feel a little sad having to eat my creations. It's like if I were a painter, right? And I made my magnum opus every day, only to throw it into the fire. Something precious, lost every time. But then I get to do it all over again, do it better, make it taste better, find all the new ways to prepare a meal. And that makes it all the better.
Taius's heart rate was starting to pick up again, a lump forming in his throat. "And, what will we be eating?" he asked after a moment. Bodwin glanced at him.
"Well, I'll be eating you. You'll be eating, I don't know, maybe a bug will creep by and you can suck it up."
At that, Taius went rigid. "What?" he croaked, his throat tightening to the point it strangled his words. Bodwin held a hand up.
"I know. No need to look at me like that. I mean, fuck. It's not like you were ever gonna survive out here, you know? A man's gotta eat. As it so happens, human? Tastes pretty good. Then if the kobolds are all okay with slurping down human meat, well, fuck it, why can't I? At least this way, you're feeding your fellow man rather than just getting gobbled up by the swamp. It's better this way."
"You're joking," Taius stammered, breaking out into a cold sweat. Again, his eyes scoured the area for a way out. "You're joking with me." Bodwin sighed in exasperation, as if he had heard that before. He probably had.
Oh, for the love of, why do they always gotta... You want proof? Here,
he said, his tone growing annoyed, and stood. Walking over to one of the dripping sacks, he pulled it open, rifled around inside, and casually procured a severed human arm. Taius screamed.
Oh, will you stop that?
Bodwin grunted, crouching down in front of Taius and showing him the arm up close. It was slender, elegant, and might have been smooth once upon a time had it not clearly been cooked in a fire. It might have belonged to a woman once.
Look! See? Now, this used to be the arm of some minor noble lady. I think she was, eloping out here with her boy toy. But look, hey, look. Dead. Doesn't feel a thing. And
he opened his mouth wide, affording Taius a far too intimate view of his reddened gums and yellowing teeth. He bit down, a satisfied snarl sounding from deep in his throat, as fat and fluid dribbled down his chin. Bodwin let Taius watch him chew for a few seconds, then wiped his jaw with the back of his hand and grinned.
And she tastes great. She's kept me fed for nearly a week now. She had some real nice gems, too. You know, she tried to buy her freedom with them, tried to bribe me, but... You know, what good are some shiny rocks gonna do for a guy like me, huh?
Taius, again, started retching.
Oh, come on, cut that out!
Bodwin snapped, smacking Taius on the back of the head.
You'll barf up the pearl. Well, that'd be a waste now, wouldn't it? Have some decency and grow your meat back so I can eat it properly.
You're a monster! Taius wheezed, struggling frantically against his bonds. You sick bastard! Bodwin rolled his eyes.
You know, maybe if you were the first person to complain about my art, you might have hit a nerve with that. But as it so happens, people tend to lose all of their imagination when they get scared. I don't get it personally, but what can you do?
Taius shuddered uncontrollably, his vision blurring and his mind racing. His thoughts were of no help to him now, turning into a clouded mess of half-concepts and wild, primordial panic. He squirmed against his bonds, serving only to irritate the flesh of his wrists and ankles. And all the while, he was begging. Oh, gods, why? Why are you doing this? Why is this happening to me? Gods, someone, anyone, help me. I'll do anything, I'll do anything. Help me, help me, help me. Bodwin sighed, his shoulders sagging.
Really? You're crying now? Juna's tits, boy, if this is the kind of man you are, what the fuck are you doing down here in the mire?
Taius glanced his way, his frantic prayers fading in volume to a wordless mumble. Bodwin stood, shaking his head.
Damn, man. I heard you screaming, you know. And that's fair. The Miskets are nasty little buggers. They're not like us. They're just beasts. Raw and primal. Like this whole bloody swamp,
he lamented, walking lazily over to the edge of the firelight. He casually planted his hands on his hips and looked out into the midnight dark.
This place. It ain't to be taken lightly, especially outside the perch. This swamp will swallow up anyone and anything that comes down here, what isn't ready for it. Misfits are the least of your troubles. We got corrupt mayors, madmen, cults, snake oil salesmen handed out snake venom as an aphrodisiac, who'll then pick your corpse clean of everything but the skin on your bones. Now it sucks, but for people like me...
Bodwin turned back to Taius, his cheeks rising and his lips splitting into an unnaturally large grin. The gristle of the arm he bit down into sparkled distractingly on his chin.
For the freaks, the weirdos, the madmen who do things just a little different. Well, now there ain't nowhere else in the world for us to go, now is there? We go to town and we get hung. So out here in the wild frontiers is where we make our homes. Here we can be ourselves fully and freely.
Bodwin lost his smile. His nostrils flared, and his eyes almost seemed to glow in the firelight.
But for you, look at you, sobbing and crying on the ground, scrawny as a twig, and about half as smart by how long it took you to clock what I'm gonna do. Stupid, weak, coward.
Taius looked away, his sniffles falling silent as an odd sensation of calm fell over him. Bodwin continued.
The hell are you doing out here, man? Desperate men gotta do desperate things, sure. I get that. But you don't belong here. And now you're gonna die here. If it's any consolation, though, I'll make it quick.
Taius said nothing. Bodwin tilted his head at Taius, waiting for some biting retort. After almost a minute of unobstructed silence, he shrugged and sat back down. He returned to his whittling as if nothing had happened.
Ah, well. You get some shut-eye now. You hear? Let that pearl do its work. Don't worry. I'll save some part of you to bury. Your soul ain't going to Tormos.
Bodwin stopped talking then, leaving the two in utter silence, save for the maddening crackle of the fire. Taius lay still, trying to rest. He was still afraid, it was true. But there was something more. He was furious. Silently, quietly, almost tranquilly. But right now he felt like he could pull a dragon's head off with his bare hands.
I am a coward,
he thought, going over everything Bodwin had said to him.
I am stupid. I am weak. And I am done.
A plan was starting to form in his mind. It would probably get him killed, but he was doomed already if he didn't do something, so what did it matter? Time dragged on. The fire dimmed. Bodwin grew tired eventually, yawned and found his roll of furry rags to sleep in. And Taius waited.